Tonight, imagine standing alone in a muddy furrow of an open field in 14th century England. The sun has not yet risen, and the mist clings to the ground like a wet gray wool blanket. The air is cold, carrying the damp scent of soil and the sharp, dusty smell of cut wheat. You are shivering, not just from the morning chill, but from a caloric deficit that has been compounding for months. You are holding a sickle, a curved iron blade that is likely the most valuable object you own, and your hands are calloused, stained dark by the earth. You are waiting for the light, not because you enjoy the sunrise, but because you cannot afford to waste a single minute of visibility. The harvest is here, and the harvest waits for no man. You are wet, you are hungry, and you are surrounded by a silence so heavy it feels like a physical weight pressing down on your stooped shoulders. You probably wouldn't last long here. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Go ahead and comment your location and your local time. Let's mark this quiet vigil together across the dark. Now, dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum. And let's ease into tonight's journey together. You look out over the field. It is a patchwork of strips, long and narrow, divided by low ridges of turf. This is your life's work. You plowed it in the mud of March. You weeded it in the heat of June, and you prayed over it during the drought of August. The stalks of wheat standing before you are not just plants. They are the physical manifestation of your survival. Every grain in those heads represents a loaf of bread that will keep your children from starving in February. You have calculated the yield in your head 1,000 times. If the harvest is good, you will eat. If it is bad, you will bury the youngest. But before you can calculate your own survival, you must perform the first and most sacred duty of the harvest. You must pay God. The tithe is not a tax in the modern sense. It is not a percentage of your profit, calculated after you have deducted the cost of seed, the wear on your plow, and the labor of your family. It is a tax on the gross produce of the land. It is a flat 10% of everything the earth yields, taken off the top before you are allowed to take a single grain for yourself. You begin to cut. The sickle makes a rhythmic swish-crack sound as it slices through the dry stalks. You gather the wheat into bundles or sheaves. You tie them with a twist of straw. You stand them up in stooks to dry. And as you work, you count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. You pause. The 10th sheaf. This sheaf does not belong to you. It belongs to the church. Specifically, it belongs to the rector, the priest who holds the living of the parish. You look at the sheaf. It is thick, heavy with grain. It is a good sheaf. And that is the problem. You cannot give God the runt of the litter. The church is very specific about this. The tithe must be an average representation of the crop. And if the proctor, the priest, tax collector suspects you are hiding the good wheat in your own pile, he will take the best sheaf he can find, and then he will fine you for the insult. You set the 10th sheaf aside. It sits there in the stubble, a golden offering to a deity who, quite frankly, has never helped you pull a plow out of a ditch. This is the great tithe, the tax on the major crops: wheat, barley, oats, and rye. It is the backbone of the church's wealth. You might wonder why the all-powerful creator of the universe needs so much barley. Does he bake bread in heaven? Does he brew ale? The answer, of course, is that God's representatives on earth have very earthly appetites. The rector needs to eat. He needs to maintain the chancel of the church. He needs to buy wax candles and incense. And quite often, he needs to support a lifestyle that looks suspiciously more comfortable than yours. There is a bleak humor in the arrangement. You are the one with the cracked fingernails and the aching back. You are the one who took the risk of the frost and the blight. And yet, the priest, whose hands are soft as parchment, is to walk into the field and claim 10% of your labor without lifting a finger. It is the original passive income. You continue to work. 1, 2, 3. The pile for the church grows. It is a visual representation of your dispossession. You look at your own pile, then at the church's pile. You do the mental math. If you harvest 100 sheaves, 10 go to the priest. That leaves 90. But you must save at least 20 for next year's seed, or you will have nothing to plant. That leaves 70. Then there is the rent to the Lord. Then there is the milling fee. The pile shrinks and shrinks in your mind, until a loaf of bread on your table looks more like a crumb. The tithe barn looms large in your imagination. Every village has one. It is often the biggest building in the parish, second only to the church itself. It is a massive, stone-walled fortress designed to hold the wealth extracted from the peasantry. While your own cottage is made of wattle and daub, rotting in the damp, God's grain sleeps in a palace of oak and limestone. There is a saying among the peasants, whispered when the priest isn't listening. The church roof is always watertight, even when the congregation is drowning. Historians still argue whether the tithe was universally resented or accepted as a necessary spiritual insurance policy. Standing in the field, watching the proctor load your wheat into his cart, you probably lean toward resentment. You are told that this payment ensures your salvation. You are buying a ticket to heaven. But it feels a lot like you are buying the priest a new cloak. The system is rigged to be intrusive. It isn't just the wheat. The small tithe comes for everything else. It comes for the wool from your sheep. It comes for the milk from your cow. It comes for the eggs from your chickens. If you grow onions in your garden, the 10th onion belongs to the vicar. If your sow has a litter of piglets, the 10th squealing piglet is carried away to the rectory kitchen. There is no corner of your life that is private. The church has a share in every biological process on your farm. You finish the row. You stand up, pressing your hands into the small of your back to relieve the spasm of pain. The sun is fully up now, weak and watery behind the clouds. The proctor is moving down the line, checking the sheaves. He pokes them with a stick. He counts. He nods. He is the accountant of the divine, and he never makes a mistake in your favor. You watch him load the 10th sheaf onto his wagon. That sheaf could have made enough bread to feed your daughter for a week. It could have been traded for a pair of shoes. Instead, it will rot in the dark of the tithe barn until the price of grain rises in the winter, at which point the priest will sell it back to you at a profit. This is the cruelty of the economy you live in. You are paying for the privilege of your own exploitation. You are funding the institution that tells you to be grateful for your poverty. The priest reads from the pulpit, "Blessed are the poor." You wonder, as you wipe the sweat from your brow, if he would like to swap blessings with you for a week. The wagon creaks away, heavy with the plunder of the morning. You turn back to the remaining 9 sheaves. They are yours mostly. You gather them up, hugging them to your chest. They are scratchy and sharp, but they smell of life. You have paid the toll. You have bribed the gatekeeper. Now you can get on with the business of trying to survive until tomorrow. But as you look at the empty space where the 10th sheaf used to be, you feel a hollowness in your stomach that has nothing to do with hunger. It is the realization that in this world you are a tenant in every sense. You do not own the land. You do not own the crop. You barely own your own soul. You are just the mechanism by which the earth is converted into wealth for men who claim to speak for the sky. The 10th sheaf is gone, rattled away in the priest's cart, but your debt is far from settled. You wipe the chaff from your face and look down at the dirt beneath your boots. It is heavy clay, sticky and cold, the kind of earth that fights the plow and clings to your skin like a second shadow. You know this mud. You know the way it cracks in the summer and turns to glue in the November rains. You know which corner of the strip floods first and where the thistles like to grow. You have ingested this soil in the dust of the harvest. You have bled into it when the knife slipped. You have buried your ancestors in it. By all laws of logic and sweat, this land should belong to you. But in the feudal imagination, you are merely a guest. A very expensive, temporary guest. You walk back to your cottage, the toft and croft, your small house, and the garden patch behind it. This is your sanctuary, the place where you sleep, eat, and hide from the wind. But even here, the walls do not protect you from the long arm of the manor. You do not own the roof over your head. You do not own the floor you sleep on. You are holding this space by the grace of the Lord, and grace is a commodity that must be purchased, year after year, with silver. This is the rent. It is not a transaction between equals. In the modern world, a tenant pays a landlord for a service, housing. There is a contract, a set of rights, a legal framework. Here, there is only dominium. The Lord owns the earth because his father owned it, and his father took it with a sword, and God, apparently, nodded in approval. You pay him not for the quality of the accommodation, which is a single room filled with smoke and vermin, but for the privilege of not being thrown into the forest to die. The due date hangs over the calendar like a guillotine blade. Usually Michaelmas, the feast of St. Michael in late September. It is the end of the agricultural year, the moment of reckoning. You must scrape together the assize rent, the fixed sum attached you're holding. You go to the earthen jar buried in the corner of the hut, the only bank vault you have. You dig out the coins. They are thin, battered silver pennies, clipped at the edges, worn smooth by the thumbs of 1,000 desperate men before you. You count them. You have sold the eggs. You have sold a sheep. You have starved yourself to save the grain to sell at market. And now you hold the result of that suffering in your palm. It feels impossibly light. A year of labor, condensed into a few ounces of metal. You walk to the manor house. It sits on the hill or across the stream, physically elevated above the village. It is built of stone, not wattle. It has glass in the windows, or at least sturdy shutters. It smells of roasting meat and wood smoke, a sharp contrast to the smell of cabbage and damp wool that clings to you. You enter the hall, cap in hand, eyes downcast. You are entering the belly of the beast. The steward or the bailiff sits at a table, a great roll of parchment spread out before him. This is the manor roll. It is the book of life and debt. Your name is there, written in Latin, a language you cannot read, locking you into a legal reality you cannot navigate. Johannes Filius Wilhelmi, debet. You step forward. You place the coins on the table. The bailiff counts them. He bites one to check the silver. He sweeps them into a chest with a casual, dismissive gesture. He makes a mark next to your name. You have bought another year of existence. You are allowed to go back to the mud and start the cycle all over again. But sometimes silver is not enough. The rent is often a hybrid of coin and kind. The Lord might demand a pound of cumin, a pair of gloves, or, most commonly, hens. At Christmas, you might owe a wood hen. At Easter, you might owe eggs. These seem like small things, but when your chickens are laying poorly in the dark of winter, finding a hen to give away is a panic-inducing ordeal. You are handing over your protein source. You are handing over the engines of your own survival. And what happens if you cannot pay? There is no eviction court. There is no appeal process. If you fall too far behind, the Lord simply exercises his right of fauces. He swallows the land back. The bailiff arrives, not with a writ, but with a club. You are distrained. Your chattels, your pots, your tools, your livestock are seized to cover the debt. If that isn't enough, you are removed. The fire in your hearth is extinguished. The door is barred against you. To be landless in the Middle Ages is to be a ghost. You become a vagrant, a beggar, a non-person drifting on the roads, subject to arrest and branding. So, you pay. You always pay. You pay with the money that should have bought medicine for your wife. You pay with the grain that should have fattened a pig. You pay because the alternative is the void. The irony is suffocating. The Lord likely has never touched a plow in his life. He does not know the pH of the soil. He does not know which wind brings the blight. To him, the land is an abstraction, a line on a ledger, a source of revenue to buy silk and armor and wine. To you, the land is a living, breathing thing that you are married to. You nurse it. You feed it with manure. You worry over it like a sick child. You have a deeper, more visceral claim to this earth than he ever will. But he has the parchment, and he has the sword. You walk back from the manor house, your purse empty, your heart heavy. You look at your cottage. It is sinking slightly into the mud. The thatch is rotting. It is a hovel. But it is your hovel, rented at an exorbitant price from a man who sees you as nothing more than a stubborn piece of livestock that can talk. You step inside. The air is smoky. The fire is low. You sit on a three-legged stool and stare at the dirt floor. You have paid the rent of earth. You have secured your place in space, but you have not yet paid for your time. The coin was just the beginning. The Lord does not just want your silver. He wants your sweat. He wants your muscles. He wants the days of your life. The bailiff's ledger is not closed yet. There is another column next to the rent, a column measured not in pennies, but in days. And as you watch the sun go down, you realize that tomorrow morning, when you wake up, you will not be working for yourself. You have rented the ground, but you have sold the man standing on it. The silver pennies have been counted and locked away in the Lord's strongbox, but the dawn brings a new currency to the table, one that is far more difficult to surrender. You wake in the gray light, your muscles stiff from the harvest, your hands curled into permanent claws from gripping the sickle. You listen to the rain drumming softly on the thatch. In a sane world, this would be a morning to stay close to the hearth, to repair a tool, or to rush to your own strip of land and dig a drainage ditch before the wheat drowns. But it is Tuesday, or perhaps it is Thursday. The specific day matters less than the fact that it is a work day. It does not belong to you. You rise, eat a crust of dry bread, and step out into the rain. You do not turn left toward your own field, the toft that feeds your family. You turn right, walking toward the high ground, toward the domain. The domain is the Lord's personal farm. It is the best land in the parish. It has the deepest soil, the best drainage, and the sunniest aspect. It is a vast, manicured garden of profit, and it runs entirely on the stolen energy of men like you. This is the week work. It is the defining feature of your serfdom. For 3 days every week, 50% of your working life. If you exclude the Sabbath, you are a machine owned by the manor. You arrive at the edge of the Lord's field. You are not alone. A dozen other men are there, silent, sullen, wrapped in rough wool cloaks that smell of wet dog. You are waiting for the reeve. The reeve is one of you, a peasant chosen, often against his will, to supervise the work. He stands there holding a white rod, a symbol of his authority. He is the traitor in your midst, the man who must report you if you are late, or if your work is shoddy. He looks at you with eyes that are hard, because he knows that if the quota isn't met, the bailiff will fine him. The pressure flows downhill, and you are at the bottom of the slope. Today, the work is plowing, or perhaps it is spreading manure. Let's assume it is the latter, for the medieval world is built on a foundation of dung. The cart is waiting. You pick up a pitchfork. You begin to shovel. The wet, heavy muck slaps against the wood of the cart. You are moving fertility from the stables to the Lord's earth. You are literally enriching the rich. The work is back-breaking. Your shoulders scream. Your boots stick in the clay. And as you heave the manure, your mind drifts to your own field, just half a mile away. This is the psychological torture of the week work. It is not just the exertion. It is the opportunity cost. You know that your own barley is choked with weeds. You know that your fence has a hole in it where the sheep are getting in. You know that if you don't stake your peas today, They will rot on the ground, but you cannot go there. You are tethered here, fixing a rich man's problems, while your own life unravels in the distance. You look at the sky. The clouds are darkening. A storm is coming. If you were free, you would be racing to cover your hayricks. But you are not free. You must stay here and finish the Lord's furrow. If it rains, his crops will be saved. Yours will be ruined. The system prioritizes his surplus over your survival. You work with a specific kind of lethargy. It is a practiced, sullen slowness. You do not run. You do not exert yourself one iota more than is necessary to keep the reeve from hitting you with the white rod. This is the only weapon you have. Kakani. You drag your feet. You take a long time to scrape the mud from your boots. You fumble with the harness. You are engaging in a silent, invisible strike. The Lord owns your time, but he cannot force you to give him your enthusiasm. The reeve shouts. You speed up just for a moment, then settle back into the rhythm of the reluctant. Lunchtime arrives. Sometimes, by custom, the Lord provides food during week work. It is called a livery. You sit on the edge of the ditch and are handed a loaf of bread. It is mazzoline bread, a mix of rye and wheat, dark and dense as a brick. Sometimes there is a piece of cheese, hard enough to crack a tooth, or a few herrings that have been salted so heavily they burn your tongue. You eat it greedily. You have to. This is the fuel that keeps the engine running. There is a grim joke among the peasants that the Lord feeds you just enough to keep you working, but not enough to let you run away. You are like the ox, valuable enough to maintain, but not valuable enough to pamper. The afternoon stretches out, an eternity of gray sky and brown earth. You are digging a ditch now. The water is freezing, seeping into your boots, numbing your toes. You wonder if you will lose a nail, or perhaps a toe, to the trench foot that plagues the village in winter. The Lord's ditch must be 4 feet wide and 3 feet deep. The reeve measures it with a stick. If it is 3 inches too shallow, you stay until it is right. You are not building a cathedral. You are not defending the realm. You are digging a hole so that the Lord's meadow doesn't get swampy, so that his horses have better grass. His horses. You saw them earlier, sleek and well-fed, wearing leather tack that costs more than your house. They are treated with a veterinary care you will never receive. If a horse goes lame, the Lord calls a farrier. If you go lame, you starve. The sun begins to dip. The reeve finally nods. Enough, he grunts. You drop the shovel. Your hands are vibrating with fatigue. You are covered in filth. You turn and begin the walk back to the village. Your body wants to collapse. It wants to crawl into the straw and sleep for 12 hours. But as you crest the hill, you see your own strip of land. It is waiting for you. The weeds are still there. The fence is still broken. The rain is starting to fall in earnest now, beating down on your unprotected crops. You cannot sleep. You cannot rest. The free time you have, the evenings, the Sundays, is the only time you have to save yourself. You have spent the prime energy of the day making a wealthy man wealthier, and now you must spend the dregs of your strength keeping your children alive. You walk past your cottage door. You do not go in. You pick up your own hoe. You walk into your own field, into the twilight, into the rain. You are a serf, which means you work twice, once for the rent of the earth, and once for the right to eat what grows in it. And as you strike the ground with the hoe, chopping at the thistles in the gloom, you realize that the week work didn't just steal your Tuesday. It stole your energy, your hope, and your ability to ever get ahead. You are running a race where the starting line is moved back every time you take a step. The regular grinding rhythm of the week work is bad enough, a slow, chronic theft of your time that bleeds you dry 3 days a week, but at least it is predictable. You can plan around it. You know that Tuesday belongs to the Lord, so you don't schedule your own harvest for Tuesday. But the medieval calendar is not a static thing. It is a weaponized instrument of timing. And nowhere is this more apparent than in the late summer, when the wheat turns gold and the sky turns threatening. This is the season of the boon. You are standing in your own narrow strip of land. The barley is ripe. It whispers in the wind, the heavy heads nodding, telling you that it is time. The kernels are hard. The stalks are dry. If you cut it today, you will have bread for the winter. If you wait, the birds will eat it, the wind will shatter the heads, or the summer storms will beat it flat into the mud where it will rot. The urgency is a physical sensation, a tightness in your chest. You sharpen your sickle. You tell your wife to bring the water skin. You are ready to save your family. And then you hear the horn, or the bell, or the voice of the beetle shouting from the lane. It is the summons for boon work. The word boon comes from the Old English ben, meaning a prayer, a request, or a favor. It implies a kindness. It implies that the Lord is asking you, neighbor to neighbor, for a helping hand. It is a linguistic trap. In reality, the boon work is a mandatory favor. It is a draft. And it always, without fail, comes exactly when you can least afford to give it. The Lord's crops are ripe, too. And because he is the Lord, his harvest takes precedence over yours. The logic of the feudal system is absolute. The head of the body must be fed before the feet. So, the bailiff declares the magna precaria, the great boon. This is not like the week work, where you trudge up the hill alone while your wife tends the garden. The great boon is a total war mobilization. Everyone must come. You, your wife, your grown children, your elderly father if he can still stand. The only person allowed to stay behind is the housekeeper, usually a young child left to ensure the cottage doesn't burn down. The village is emptied. The silence in the lanes is eerie, because the entire population has been relocated to the Lord's domain. You arrive at the vast, golden ocean of the Lord's wheat. The scale of it is mocking. Your own patch is a handkerchief compared to this. You are handed your instructions. You are to reap. Your wife is to bind. Your son is to stack. You form a line, a human combine harvester, moving across the field in a staggered phalanx. The work is frantic. During week work, you dragged your feet. Here, you cannot. The bailiff rides up and down the line on his horse, shouting, checking the stubble. If you leave the stalks too high, you are fined. If you drop too much grain, you are fined. If you stop to drink water without permission, you are fined. There is a reaper reeve watching your every move, a man whose only job is to ensure that your exhaustion is total. The irony of the boon burns hotter than the sun on your neck. You are saving the Lord's grain from the very storm that is threatening your own. You can see the clouds gathering in the west, dark bruises on the horizon. Every hour you spend here securing his wealth is an hour your own wealth is left exposed to the catastrophe. You are literally working against your own survival. To add insult to injury, the system categorizes these days with a sickening politeness. There are hungry boons, where you must work without food, providing your own crust of bread. And there are wet boons, where the Lord, in his infinite generosity, provides a drink. Usually it is penny ale, a weak, sour brew that barely hydrates you, but you drink it gratefully because the dust of the harvest has turned your throat into sandpaper. Then there are the love boons. This is the actual legal term. It implies that you are working out of love for your Lord. You are not working for pay. You are working for affection. It is a grotesque emotional blackmail codified into law. You hack away at the wheat, your back screaming, your hands bleeding, fueled by love for a man who would hang you for stealing a rabbit. But the real centerpiece of the boon work is the harvest supper. This is the carrot dangled at the end of the stick. Tradition dictates that if the Lord calls a great boon, he must feed the workers at the end of the day. The sun finally sets, painting the sky in colors that warn of rain. The work stops. You and your neighbors, hundreds of you, gather in the barn or on the green. The Lord's kitchen staff brings out the food. This is supposed to be a feast. It is supposed to be the reward that makes the slavery palatable. You are handed a wooden trencher. You get a ladle of pottage peas and bacon. Maybe a piece of roast meat, if the Lord is trying to be popular, or if an old cow died recently. There is cheese. There is ale. You eat voraciously. You are starving. The food is salty, greasy, and heavy. For a moment, the camaraderie of the village takes over. You sit with your neighbors, faces grimy with sweat and dust, chewing on the Lord's beef. The bailiff smiles, playing the role of the benevolent host. See, his expression says, the Lord provides. We are a family, but as you wipe the grease from your chin, the reality sinks in. You have traded a day of critical, life-saving labor on your own land for a bowl of stew and a pint of bad beer. The caloric value of the meal is high, but the economic cost is ruinous. You have effectively sold your harvest insurance for a hamburger. Historians still argue about the quality of these meals. Some manorial records list vast quantities of meat and ale, suggesting a genuine celebration, while others show the peasants bringing their own bread to the feast. But looking around at the exhausted faces of your children, you suspect the truth is somewhere in the middle. It is just enough food to keep you from rioting, and not a crumb more. The feast ends. You stumble home in the dark. The gift has been given. The Lord's barns are full. His wheat is safe under a tight thatch roof, protected from the elements. You reach your own field. The moon is hidden behind the clouds. The wind has picked up. You feel the first cold drop of rain on your cheek. Then another. Then the sky opens up. You stand there, helpless, watching the rain hammer into your standing corn. The stalks, heavy and brittle, begin to buckle. You can hear the snap of the straw. The crop is lodging, falling flat onto the wet mud where it will mildew and sprout before you can cut it. If you had been here today, you could have saved it. You could have cut it and covered it. But you were busy performing a love boon for the man on the hill. You turn away, unable to watch the destruction of your winter food supply. You go into your cottage and lie down, your stomach full of the Lord's meat, your heart full of a dark, cold rage. You have paid the tax of time. You have given the gift that was demanded. And the price is the gnawing fear that when February comes and the Lord is eating white bread in his hall, you will be scraping the mold off the bottom of your grain bin, wondering why your love wasn't enough to save you. The grain you managed to salvage from the mud is now dried, threshed, and winnowed. It sits in a sack in the corner of your hut, a lumpy, dusty treasure. But in its current state, it is inedible. It is hard as gravel. To turn it into bread, it must be crushed. In a logical world, you would sit by your own fire with a quern, a simple pair of hand stones used since the Stone Age, and grind it yourself. It would be slow, quiet work, done in the safety of your own home, keeping every ounce of flour for your family. But you do not live in a logical world. You live in a feudal one. And in this world, even the physics of crushing wheat is a monopoly owned by the Lord. This is the suit of mill. It is a legal obligation as binding as the rent or the boom work. The Lord has built a mill, a massive, creaking structure by the river, or a towering windmill on the hill, and he has decreed that every grain grown on his land must be ground in his machine. To own a hand quern is a crime. To grind your own flour is theft. The Lord claims he owns the water that turns the wheel. He claims he owns the wind that spins the sails. He has privatized the elements. So you hoist the heavy sack onto your shoulder. It weighs perhaps 50 pounds. You trudge down the muddy lane toward the river. You can hear the mill before you see it. It is a low rhythmic thunder, a vibration that travels through the soles of your boots. Thump, splash, thump, splash. It is the heartbeat of the village's hunger. You step inside. The noise is deafening. The air is thick with white dust, a fog of pulverized starch that coats your eyelashes and fills your lungs. In the center of the room, the great stones are spinning, the runner stone turning atop the bed stone. They grind together with a sound like bones breaking, powered by the relentless torque of the water wheel outside. It is a technological marvel, the most complex machine you will ever see. It is also a prison. Standing by the hopper is the miller. If the bailiff is the Lord's fist, the miller is his greedy fingers. He is often the most hated man in the village. He is usually fat or rare and suspicious body type in a community of starving serfs. His face is pale, dusted white like a clown's, and he develops a cough that sounds like wet gravel, the miller's lung that will eventually kill him. But before he dies, he will take his cut. You dump your grain into the hopper. You watch it slide down toward the stones. And now the transaction begins. You do not pay the miller in coin. You pay him in multure. This is a toll taken in kind. Usually it is 1/16 or 1/20 of the grain, or so the law says. But the measurement is done with a toll dish, a wooden scoop that belongs to the miller. You watch him dip the dish into your grain. He scoops. But was that a level scoop? Or did he heap it? Did he press it down to pack more in? He moves with the speed of a magician. One scoop for the Lord, one scoop for the upkeep of the mill, and then, perhaps, a quick practice scoop for himself, tipped into a hidden bin before you can blink. This is the legend of the golden thumb. It is said that an honest miller has hair on the palms of his hands, which is to say, he doesn't exist. You stare at his hands. They look normal, save for the thumb, which seems to hover over the scale or the dish, applying just enough pressure to tilt the math in his favor. He smiles at you through the flour fog. It is the smile of a man who knows you have nowhere else to go. The stones grind. Your wheat is pulverized. The heat generated by the friction is intense. The flour comes out warm to the touch, but the quantity seems light. You brought in a full sack. The sack you are filling now looks looser, deflated. You suspect he has swapped the sack, giving you the flour from a previous, lower quality batch of mixed rye and peas, while keeping your pure wheat for the market. Or perhaps he has mixed in chalk or sand to bulk up the weight. Historians still argue how widespread this adulteration was, but when you bite into your bread later and grit cracks between your teeth, you won't need a historian to tell you the truth. But you cannot complain. The miller leases the mill from the Lord for a high annual fee. He has to make a profit. If he doesn't cheat you, he can't pay the Lord. The corruption is baked into the lease. There have been raids, you remember. The bailiff and the miller have marched through the village, kicking open cottage doors, searching for hidden handcorns. If they find one, they smash it. They confiscate the stones. They fine the peasant. In some places, they pave the floor of the mill with the broken fragments of confiscated corns, a mosaic of crushed independence that you have to walk on every time you bring your grain. It is a psychological dominance display. Walk on your rebellion, the floor says. Walk on your failure. The grinding finishes. The miller ties your sack. He pats it. A good yield. He shouts over the roar of the water wheel. You hoist the sack. It is definitely lighter. You have paid the multure. You have paid the hidden tax of the thumb. You have paid for the service of having your grain ground by a machine you didn't want to use. You step back out into the fresh air. The silence of the laying feels sudden and ringing. You cough, expelling a cloud of white dust. You are carrying the raw material of life, but you feel like you have just been mugged. There is a grim joke often told at the alehouse. What is the boldest thing in the world? A miller's shirt, for it clasps a thief by the throat every day. You chuckle at it now, but it is a bitter sound. You are walking home with less than you grew. The mill chugs on behind you, churning the river, churning the village. It is a necessary evil. Without it, you would be spending 3 hours a day grinding grain by hand. The machine does save labor. But the price of that efficiency is your autonomy. You are no longer a self-sufficient farmer. You are a customer. You are a cog in a supply chain that extracts value at every turn. You reach your cottage. You dump the flour into the bin. You dip a finger in and taste it. It tastes of stone and friction. It is warm. It is alive. It will make bread. It will keep the children fed for another week. You should be grateful. But as you wipe the flour from your tunic, you notice a fine white powder on your own skin. You realize that the miller isn't just grinding wheat. He is grinding the village. He is grinding you. Slowly, imperceptibly, grain by grain, he is taking a percentage of your existence. And unlike the wheat, you will never grow back. The flour is back in your cottage, diminished by the miller's thumb, but safe in your bin. You mix it with water from the well, and a lump of sourdough, saved from last week, is baking a bubbling, pungent culture that lives in a wooden bowl and smells of beer and old apples. You knead the mixture on the table. It is heavy, sticky work. The dough resists you, fighting back against your knuckles, alive with the wild yeast of the air. You shape it into loaves, round and pale, dusting them with the last of the flour. They sit on the board, rising slowly, expanding with the promise of survival. In a world where you owned your own life, you would now rake the ashes of your hearth, slide these loaves onto a hot stone, and cover them with an inverted pot to bake. Or perhaps you would have a small clay oven built into the side of your chimney, a little cavern of heat where you could perform the final alchemy of turning paste into food. But you do not live in that world. You live in the Lord's world. And in this world, fire is a franchise. You pick up the board of raw dough. You walk out into the village lane again. You are not heading to the fields or the mill this time, but to the center of the village, where a large stone building belches smoke into the sky. This is the furnace communis, the common oven. It sounds communal. The name suggests a shared resource, a place built by the village for the village. But common in feudal law does not mean free. It means monopoly. Just as the Lord owns the water that turns the mill, he owns the heat that bakes the bread. He asserts a right called banality, the power to compel you to use his infrastructure and to charge you for the pleasure. You enter the bakehouse. The heat hits you like a physical blow. It is a dry, scorching heat that smells of wood smoke, toasted grain, and burnt crust. In the center of the room is the oven itself, a massive cavernous maw of brick and stone. Inside, a fire has been roaring for hours, heating the floor and the walls until they glow. The fire is now raked out, leaving a clean, superheated chamber ready to receive the village's sustenance. The baker stands guard. He is often a cousin of the miller, or at least a spiritual brother in the art of extraction. He holds a peel, a long wooden shovel used to slide the loaves into the dark throat of the oven. He looks at your dough. He counts the loaves. 6, he says. You nod. 6. 1 for the oven, he replies. This is the furnage. It is the tax on heat. You must give him 1 loaf, or perhaps a cut of dough, or a penny, depending on the custom of the manor. If you pay in dough, he adds it to his own private batch. If you pay in bread, he takes the best loaf when they come out. You watch him slide your remaining 5 loaves into the deep darkness. You feel a pang of anxiety. Those are your children's dinners disappearing into a hole controlled by a stranger. You have to trust that he won't burn them. You have to trust that he won't mix them up with your neighbor's loaves, which are made of inferior rye. You have to trust that he won't steal one and claim it burst in the heat. To prevent confusion or theft, you have marked your loaves. You pressed a specific pattern into the dough with your thumb, or cut a sign with a knife, a cross, a circle, a star. These are not decorative. They are claim tickets. They are the only proof of ownership you have in this inferno. You step back and wait. The bakehouse is crowded. It is the village gossip center, the place where warmth is free, even if the baking isn't. You stand with your neighbors, soaking up the heat, drying your damp wool clothes. It is comfortable. It is social, but it is also a trap. Why can't you bake at home? The Lord's lawyers have a very sensible answer. Safety. Your cottage is built of timber and wattle. Your roof is made of straw. If you were to build a large oven and fire it up to 500 degrees, you would likely burn down your house. And if your house burns, the sparks might jump to the next house and the next. The whole village could go up in smoke. The Lord, in his benevolence, forbids private ovens to protect his property, which includes you. It is a logical argument. Fire is dangerous. But it is also a convenient argument. By banning private ovens, the Lord ensures a steady stream of revenue. If you try to bake a loaf in the ashes of your hearth cake or ember bread, you are technically committing a crime. It is a minor crime, often overlooked if the bread is small and unleavened, but a crime nonetheless. If you are caught building a secret oven, the fines are ruinous. You are an oven rival, a threat to the Lord's monopoly. So you pay the furnage. You pay for the wood, too. Often, the tenants are required to bring a bundle of faggots brushwood to fuel the oven as part of the fee. You walked into the forest, gathered the wood, carried it here, and now you are handing it over to heat the oven that you must pay to use. You are providing the fuel, the raw material, and the labor, and the Lord is charging you for the spark. The baker shouts your name, or rather, he shouts your symbol, the cross. You step forward. He uses the peel to fish your loaves out. They come out transformed golden brown, hollow-sounding when tapped, smelling of heaven. The crust is crisp. The inside is soft. It is real bread, the staff of life. But there are only 5. You look at the empty space where the 6th loaf should have been. That loaf is now sitting on the baker's shelf. It is the price of civilization. It is the cost of not eating raw flour. You pile the hot loaves into your basket. They warm your chest as you walk home, a small comfort against the biting wind. You break off a piece of crust and chew it. It is delicious. It tastes of the earth, the rain, and the smoke. But it also tastes of submission. The reality of the common oven is that it removes the final act of creation from your hands. You are not a baker. You are a dough preparer. The transformation happens on the Lord's territory, on his terms. Even the texture of your food is dictated by his infrastructure. And what if the oven is cold? What if the baker is drunk? What if the roof of the bakehouse leaks and ruins the fire? You have no backup. You have no plan B. You are entirely dependent on the centralized system. If the Lord's oven fails, the village eats raw dough or risks the fines of the hearth. You reach your cottage. You place the bread on the table. The smell fills the small room, masking the scent of soot and damp. Your children look at the loaves with wide eyes. You cut a slice for each of them. You watch them eat. You realize that every mouthful they take has been taxed 3 times. The land was taxed, rent. The grain was taxed, tithe. The grinding was taxed, multure. And now the baking has been taxed, furnage. The loaf of bread is not a simple gift of the earth. It is a survivor of a gauntlet of extraction. It is a miracle that there is anything left to eat at all. You sit by your own small fire, the legal fire, the one that is too small to bake bread, but big enough to warm your hands. You look at the flames. They are yours for now. But you can't help but wonder if, one day, the Lord will figure out a way to put a meter on the smoke, or a toll on the light. Until then, you eat your taxed bread, and you give thanks that you can still afford the luxury of chewing. The bread has been baked, taxed, and eaten, but the thirst remains. In the medieval world, thirst is a complicated problem. You cannot simply go to the well and drink deep. The water is clear, yes, but it is treacherous. It carries the flux, the fever, and the invisible worms that turn your bowels to water. To drink water is to gamble with your life, and the odds are not in your favor. There is a common saying in the village: water is for frogs and washing, ale is for men and living. So you brew. You are not a master brewer. You do not have a stainless steel vat or a hydrometer. You are an alewife, or perhaps just a husband trying to keep his family hydrated without killing them. You have a cauldron, a large copper kettle that represents a significant portion of your net worth, and you have malted barley. You mash the grain in hot water, extracting the sugars. You add the grout, the secret blend of herbs like bog myrtle or yarrow, because hops haven't fully conquered England yet, and you let it ferment. The result is small beer, or penny ale. It is thick, murky, and nutritious. It is liquid bread. It has an alcohol content of perhaps 1 or 2%, just enough to kill the bacteria, but not enough to make you stumble, unless you drink a gallon of it, which you frequently do. But you have made a mistake. You have brewed too much. Or perhaps you intended to brew too much. You have a surplus. And in a village economy, surplus ale is liquid currency. You decide to sell a few gallons to your neighbors. You hang a sign outside your door: ale steak. It is a long pole with a bush or a bundle of twigs tied to the end. It is the universal signal: fresh brew here. Come and drink. But the ale steak is not just an advertisement. It is a summons. It is a beacon that calls forth the ale cutter. He arrives within the hour. He is an official elected by the manor court, or appointed by the lord. He is the taster. He is the regulator of joy. He is usually a man with a red nose and a substantial belly, the physical receipts of his profession. He carries a leather satchel and a look of profound self-importance. He is the health inspector, the taxman, and the critic all rolled into one. You cannot bar the door. The assize of bread and ale is the law of the land. It dictates the price, quality, and measurement of every drop sold. If you sell ale, you are subject to the king's standard, and the ale cunner is the king's tongue. He steps into your cottage. He does not wipe his boots. He sniffs the air, judging the smell of the mash. He looks at your measures, your wooden tankards and jugs. He checks for the false bottom, a trick where thick pitch is poured into the bottom of the cup to reduce the volume while keeping the level high. You haven't done this, mostly because you can't afford the pitch, but he checks anyway, tapping the wood with a suspicious knuckle. Then he demands the sample. You pour him a quart. He holds it up to the light, what little light there is filtering through the smoke. He is looking for clarity, though clarity is a relative term for a drink that often has floaters in it. He smells it. He takes a long, slow draught. You watch him. Your stomach tightens. If he decides the ale is red, too strong, badly made, or ropey, infected with bacteria, he can condemn the entire batch. He can force you to pour it into the gutter. He can fine you. He can drag you before the manor court. Your survival depends on the palate of a man who has already tasted 6 other batches this morning. He wipes the foam from his lips. He doesn't smile. He never smiles. He nods slowly. It will pass, he grunts. But the test is not over. Historians still argue whether this next part was a universal practice or a localized eccentricity, but the legend of the breeches test looms large in the anxiety of every alewife. The story goes that the ale cunner, suspicious of the sugar content, would pour a puddle of ale onto a wooden bench. He would then sit in the puddle, wearing his official leather breeches. He would sit there for 30 minutes, drinking and talking, allowing the liquid to soak into the leather and the wood. When the time was up, he would attempt to stand. If his breeches stuck to the bench, if there was an audible rip of leather peeling away from wood, the ale was deemed to have too much residual sugar. It was unfermented. It was bad. If he rose cleanly, the ale was fully attenuated. It was good. Imagine the indignity. You are standing in your own kitchen, watching a grown man sit in a puddle of your hard work. knowing that the adhesion of his pants will determine your financial future. It is a farce of science. It is the kind of bureaucratic absurdity that only the Middle Ages could invent. Quality control via buttocks. He stands. There is no ripping sound. You exhale. Good ale, he declares. You may sell. Now comes the payment. You might think that because your ale passed the test, you are free to profit. You would be wrong. The ale cunner does not work for free. You must pay him a penny, the ale penny, for the service of him drinking your beer. You are paying for the test. And then there is the immersement. Technically, brewing for sale requires a license. But the license fee is often disguised as a fine. In many manners, the court simply fines every brewer in the village a few pennies every 6 months for breaking the assize. Regardless of whether the ale is actually bad, it is a tax by another name. The Lord knows you are brewing. He knows you are making a profit, and he wants his cut. The fine is just the price of doing business. You are a criminal, but you are a profitable criminal, so you are allowed to continue. The ale cunner leaves, taking his penny and likely a traveler jug for the road. You are left with the rest of the batch. You open your door. The neighbors come. They sit on your benches, hopefully dry ones, and they drink. They pay you in coin or barter. A few eggs for a gallon. A favor for a quart. The ale flows. It dulls the pain of the harvest. It softens the memory of the week work. It makes the cold room feel a little warmer. For a few hours, the village is happy. But as you count the earnings, you realize the math is cruel. You paid for the malt. You paid for the wood to heat the water. Wood silver. You paid the cunner. You will pay the fine at the next court. The profit margin is razor thin. You are essentially running a non-profit organization dedicated to the intoxication of the peasantry, with the Lord taking the skimming off the top. There is also the risk of the Scot ale. This is a mandatory drinking party thrown by the Lord or the bailiff. They brew a batch of ale, often of questionable quality, and decree that every tenant must attend and pay for a certain amount of drink. It is a fundraising event where attendance is compulsory and sobriety is illegal. You are forced to buy the Lord's bad beer to fill his coffers, while he fines you for selling your good beer to fill yours. You take a sip of your own brew. It is sour, yeasty, and thick. It coats your tongue. It is not a refined beverage. It is fuel. It is calories. It is the only thing that makes the long, dark winter bearable. You look at the bottom of the cup. There is a layer of sediment there, the dregs of the grain. It reminds you of your place in the world. You are the sediment. You are the heavy, useful stuff at the bottom that holds everything up, but you are destined to be swallowed or thrown out. The ale cunner is probably at the next house now, sitting in another puddle, taxing another neighbor. The system is relentless. It has monetized your thirst. It has regulated your relief. Even the simple act of getting slightly drunk is a transaction that involves the state. You pour another cup. You drink it quickly before the cunner decides to come back and charge you for a second opinion. The alcohol hits your blood, a warm, fuzzy blanket that separates you from the mud for just a little while. It is a small freedom, purchased at a high price. You wipe your mouth. It tastes of taxes, but at least it doesn't taste of water. The harvest is over, the grain is stored and taxed, and the days are growing noticeably shorter. The wind has shifted, coming now from the north, carrying the smell of frost and decaying leaves. It is October, the month of the winepress in the south, but here in the mud of the north, it is the month of the pig. You look at your pig. He is a scrawny, razor-backed creature, covered in coarse hair that stands up like wire bristles. He lives in a small sty behind your cottage, or more often, he sleeps in the corner of your room, providing a source of heat that smells only slightly worse than you do. He is not a pet. He is a caloric investment vehicle. You have poured your slops, your whey, and your peelings into him all year, hoping for a return on investment in the form of bacon. But right now, he is thin. The summer scraps are gone. To survive the winter, or rather, to be worth slaughtering for the winter, he needs to fatten up. He needs calories. He needs the mast. You look toward the forest. It stands at the edge of the village, a dark, tangled wall of oak, beech, and ash. The floor of the forest is currently carpeted with a bumper crop of acorns and beech nuts. They lie thick on the ground, a brown ocean of protein and fat trapped by the trees. It is free food. It is rotting on the ground. In a state of nature, you would simply open the gate and let your pig run wild to gorge himself until his belly drags in the mud. But you are not in a state of nature. You are in a state of lordship. The forest does not belong to the pigs. It belongs to the Lord. It is his private hunting reserve, his timber yard, and his grocery store. And the acorns? They are his property, too. Every single nut that falls from a tree is legally accounted for. If your pig eats one, he is guilty of theft. Unless, of course, you pay the pannage. This is the tax on the mast. It is the price of a pig's lunch. You gather your pigs. Perhaps you have 2 or 3. If you are lucky, and you join the other villagers on the muddy track leading to the woods, you are met at the tree line by the agister, or the woodward. He is the keeper of the forest, a man who knows every tree and every deer, and who views peasants largely as an infestation that disturbs the game. He stands with a tally stick. He counts your pigs. He checks their size. He calculates the fee. The cost of pannage varies. Sometimes it is a penny per pig. Sometimes it is a sucking pig given from the litter. Sometimes it is paid in bacon after the slaughter. In some matters, the price is determined by the quality of the acorn crop. If the oaks are heavy with nuts, the price goes up because the value of the grazing is higher. The Lord has monetized the biological cycle of the oak tree. You hand over the silver or mark the tally. It hurts. That penny could have bought salt. It could have bought nails. But you pay it because you have no choice. If you keep the pigs in the sty, they will starve, or you will starve trying to feed them from your own grain stocks. You are buying the conversion of acorns into lard. You release the pigs. They squeal and charge into the undergrowth, their snouts rooting frantically in the leaf litter. The sound of crunch, crunch, crunch fills the woods. It is the sound of your investment maturing, but the pannage is not a simple transaction. It is strictly regulated. There is a specific season, usually from Michaelmas, late September, to Martinmas, mid-November. You have 6 weeks to fatten the beast. If you leave your pigs in the forest after the deadline, they are considered trespassers. The Lord's pigs get first dibs, and they get to stay longer. Your pigs are guests. His are the residents. There is also the danger of the gleaning, just as you are not allowed to gather leftover grain in the fields until the Lord gives permission. You are often forbidden from picking up acorns for yourself until the pigs have finished. Some manors have laws against beating the trees, knocking the nuts down with a stick. You must wait for gravity. God and the wind determine the menu. You just pay for the table service. You stand in the cold woods, watching your pig eat. It is boring work, but necessary. You are the swineherd for the day. You have to ensure they don't wander off, or get eaten by a wolf, or stolen by an outlaw. But mostly, you have to ensure they don't damage the Lord's property. This is the catch. Pigs are destructive. They root. They dig. They can destroy the saplings that the Lord plans to sell as timber in 20 years. If your pig digs too deep or wrings a tree by stripping the bark, you will be fined at the next Hallmote court. So you have to ring the pig first. You must drive a piece of iron or wire through the pig's snout to prevent it from rooting too aggressively. Imagine the noise of doing that. Imagine the struggle in the mud. It is just another small violence you have to perform to comply with the regulations. As you watch the pigs gorge, you think about the economics of the acorn. To the Lord, the acorns are a windfall asset. He did not plant the trees. His ancestors likely seized them. He does not water them. He does not fertilize them. The ecosystem produces this abundance for free. Yet, he has successfully built a toll booth around a biological process. He is charging you for the sunlight that fell on the leaves. Historians often debate how strictly pannage was enforced during years of famine, but the records are filled with fines for secret pannage, peasants sneaking their pigs into the woods at night to steal a free meal. It was a common crime. In the dark, all pigs look gray, and the sound of chewing is hard to trace. But today, you are legal. You have paid the silver. Your pig is visibly expanding. His ribs are disappearing under a layer of fat. This fat is crucial. It is the only oil you will have for cooking. It is the energy that will keep you warm when the snow drifts against the door. You are essentially watching a walking candle accumulate fuel. The Agister walks past, eyeing your animals. That one's getting big, he grunts, pointing to your prize sow. You nod, but you feel a spike of fear. He is not admiring the animal. He is appraising it. He is mentally calculating the Harriet, the death tax. If you were to die this winter, that pig might be the second best beast that the Lord seizes. Or the priest might claim it as a mortuary fee. You are fattening the pig for your family, but there is a non-zero chance you are fattening it for the estate. The sun begins to set, filtering through the bare branches. The woods grow cold and hostile. The shadows lengthen. You whistle for the pigs. They are reluctant to leave the buffet. You have to hit them with a stick, driving them back toward the village. They move slowly, heavy with acorns. You walk behind them, calculating again. The tax cost you a penny. The pig has gained perhaps 10 pounds of weight. Is it worth it? Yes, just barely. You reach the village. The smell of wood smoke welcomes you back. You usher the pigs into the sty. They collapse into the straw, snoring with the heavy, satisfied sleep of the gluttonous. You envy them. They do not know about the tax. They do not know about the slaughter that is coming in November. They only know the joy of the nut. You, however, know the cost. You enter your cottage and warm your hands by the fire. You have successfully navigated the pannage. You have bought the right to use the forest floor. But as you listen to the wind rattling the door, you remember that the wood you are burning, the roof over your head, and the pig in the sty are all tied to the same ledger. You are part of a vertical integration of ownership where you are the only component that pays instead of getting paid. The pig will die soon. The slaughter month is approaching. You will salt the meat. You will hang the hams in the chimney. And every time you slice a piece of bacon this winter, you will remember the taste of the smoke, the salt, and the silver penny you left in the woods. The pig has been slaughtered, salted, and hung in the rafters, a silent, dripping pendulum of meat that marks the passage of time. But the caloric warmth of the bacon is fleeting, and the cold of the winter is relentless. It is not a passive cold. It is an aggressive, intruding force. It seeps through the wattle and daub walls of your cottage. It creeps under the gap in the door. It rises from the stamped earth floor like a ghost. You wake in the morning to find the water in the bucket has a skin of ice. You see your breath clouding in the air inside your own home. You look at the hearth. It is the altar of your survival. The fire is low, a heap of gray ash with a single sullen red eye blinking in the center. It needs to be fed. It is a hungry beast, more voracious than the pig ever was. You step outside. The world is locked in iron. The mead has frozen into ankle-breaking ridges. The trees are bare skeletons against a white sky. And there, just a few hundred yards away, is the solution. The Lord's forest stands dense and silent, a chaotic warehouse of fuel. The ground beneath the ancient oaks is littered with branches brought down by the autumn gales. There are fallen trunks, rotting stumps, and piles of brushwood. It is enough energy to keep your village warm for 100 years. In a sensible world, this waste wood would be a public good. It is dead. It is rotting. It benefits no one lying there in the snow. But you know the drill by now. In the feudal world, nothing is waste. Everything is an asset waiting to be monetized. The dead branch on the forest floor is as much the Lord Zos property as the silver goblet on his table. To pick it up without permission is theft. To burn it without paying is to steal the Lord's heat. So you must pay the wood silver. This is the fuel tax. Sometimes it is called penny silver, or simply the wood penny. It is a fee paid annually or seasonally for the right to enter the woods and gather the windfalls, the debris of the forest. You pay the penny. It is another chip off your dwindling pile of savings. You wrap yourself in your cloak, which is essentially a rough wool blanket with a hole for your head, and you trudge toward the tree line. You are not going for a leisurely stroll. You are going on a scavenging mission under strict rules of engagement. The laws of the forest are complex and terrified of one thing: waste. Not the waste of rotting wood, but waste in the legal sense, the destruction of the Lord's capital. The Lord wants the timber for his castle, his ships, and his saleable lumber. He does not want you hacking down a sapling to boil your pottage. Therefore, you are forbidden to carry an axe. An axe is a tool of destruction. It implies intent to fell. If the Woodward the Forest policeman catches you with an axe, you are fined instantly. You might even lose the axe, which is a disaster in itself. Instead, you are allowed only specific, non-destructive tools. You may use your hands. You may use a hedging bill, a small hooked blade for trimming. Or, most famously, you may use a shepherd's crook. This is the origin of the phrase, by hook or by crook, are permitted to gather dead wood that you can reach with your hook or pull down with your crook. Anything higher than your reach belongs to the Lord. Anything that requires chopping belongs to the Lord. You are a bottom feeder, restricted to the scraps that gravity and the wind have graciously provided. You enter the woods. It is quiet here, a cathedral of cold. You start to scavenge. You are looking for underwood, hazel, willow, birch. You are looking for dry, brittle branches that snap easily. You drag them into a pile. Your hands, exposed to the biting air, turn red, then blue, and a clumsy, numb white. You fumble with the rope, tying the wood into a faggot, a bundle that you can carry on your back. The woodward is watching. You can feel him. He is the shadow between the trees. He is checking to see if you are taking vert, green wood. Green wood burns poorly, but it is alive. To take it is to mutilate the forest. He is also checking to see if you are taking great wood thick limbs that could be sold as timber. You are restricted to the refuse, the trash, the stuff the Lord is too proud to burn in his own great fireplaces. You find a nice thick branch lying in the snow. It is oak. It would burn all night, a slow, hot, glorious burn. But it is borderline. Is it too thick? Is it timber? You hesitate. You look around. The temptation to take it is a physical ache. You imagine the heat it would throw. You imagine your children sleeping soundly without shivering. But you leave it. It is not worth the risk. The manor court rolls are full of names of men fined for taking one oak bough or damaging the Lord's vert. The fine would cost more than the wood is worth. You stick to the birch and the twigs. You settle for the flash heat of the brushwood rather than the endurance of the oak. You hoist the faggot onto your back. It is heavy, awkward, and the rough bark scratches your neck. You trudge back toward the village, bent double under the weight. You look like a moving bush. This is the burden, a unit of measurement. You are allowed to take what you can carry. If you have a cart, you have to pay more cart silver, so you become the cart. You reach your cottage and drop the load by the door. You are exhausted, frozen to the marrow, and your payment is a pile of sticks that will burn away in 2 days. But there is another layer to the fuel economy. Sometimes the Lord does not just tax the gathering, he compels the delivery. Just as you must plow his fields, you must often cut and carry his wood. This is a specific type of boom work called woodload. The Lord needs fuel for the great hall. He needs logs for the massive hearths that roast whole oxen. He does not hire loggers. He sends you. You are ordered to the forest, not to scavenge for yourself, but to fell trees for him. You chop, you trim, you haul. You stack the Lord's woodyard high with seasoned oak and ash. You build a mountain of potential warmth right next to the manor house. And then you walk home to your own cold hut. The psychological weight of this is immense. You have just secured the comfort of the man who taxes you. You have ensured that he will be toasty and warm while he sits at his ledger calculating your debts. Meanwhile, you are rationing twigs. You are counting sticks like a miser counts gold coins. 2 sticks for the morning porridge. 3 sticks for the evening soup. None for the night. You enter your cottage. You feed the fire with your expensive scavenged trash. The flames leap up, crackling on the dry birch. For a moment, the room glows. You hold your numb hands out to the heat. It is a sharp, stinging relief. The blood rushes back into your fingers, bringing pain before comfort. You look at the smoke rising toward the hole in the roof. Even the smoke is a reminder of your status. In some parts of Europe, and later in England, lords and kings would implement a chimney tax or hearth tax, a literal tax on the existence of a fire. If you had a hearth, you paid. If you were too poor to pay, you blocked up your chimney and froze. You are not there yet, but the principle is the same. The basic necessities of physics, heat, light, motion are treated as privileges. You sit by the fire, knowing that every minute it burns, it is consuming your labor. When the faggot is gone, you will have to pay the penny again, or risk the fine, or return to the woods, by hook or by crook. The winter night closes in. The temperature drops. The wind howls around the eaves, seeking a way in. You pull your family closer to the hearth. You are huddled around a rented fire, burning licensed wood on leased land. You are warm for now. But you know that outside, the forest is indifferent to your shivering, and the Lord is indifferent to your budget. The trees will drop their branches when they are ready, and you will pick them up only when you have paid for the right to bend your back. The fire in your hearth has burned down to embers, and the wood you gathered from the forest is gone. But there is no time to gather more today. Today is the day the village stops working and starts paying for its sins. It is the day of the Holmote, the manor court. You wash your face in the bucket of icy water. You put on your best tunic, which is identical to your worst tunic, but with fewer holes. You walk toward the manor house, joining a stream of your neighbors. Everyone is quiet. There is no chatting, no joking. This is not a social gathering. It is a reckoning. You are walking toward a room where every mistake you have made in the last 6 months has been written down, priced, and prepared for invoicing. You enter the great hall. It is imposing, built of stone that retains the cold of the crypt. At the far end, sitting on a raised dais like a minor deity, is the steward. He is the Lord's voice, his brain, and his wallet. Beside him sits the clerk, a man with ink-stained fingers and a face like a dried apple, ready to record your poverty in permanent Latin. You squeeze into the back of the room. The air smells of damp wool, nervous sweat, and the smoke from the central hearth. You stand shoulder to shoulder with the men you grew up with, the men you work with in the fields. But today, they are not your friends. They are your accusers. The manor court runs on a system called the Frank Pledge. It is a brilliant, diabolical mechanism of social control. You are organized into a tithing, a group of 10 or 12 men. You are legally responsible for each other. If one of you commits a crime, the others must produce him. If he runs away, the rest of you must pay his fine. If he cannot pay, the group pays. The Lord has successfully crowdsourced the police state. He has turned your neighbors into his watchdogs. The steward raps the table. Silence falls. The presentments begin. The chief pledges, the heads of the tithing step forward. They are the snitches. They have to be. If they conceal a crime and the steward finds out later, the fine is doubled. So they spill everything. Alice the alewife, the pledge announces, has brewed and sold ale contrary to the assize. Alice steps forward. She keeps her head down. She brewed good ale. Everyone knows it. But she brewed it for profit, and the Lord wants his cut. Immersed 6 pence, the steward declares. The clerk scratches the quill on the parchment. Scritch, scratch. That sound is the sound of Alice's profit margin vanishing. She pays not because she is a criminal, but because she is a participant in the economy. The fine is essentially a retroactive license fee. John the miller, the pledge continues, took excessive toll. Immersed 12 pence, the miller pays. He expected this. He stole enough grain to cover the fine. It is just the cost of doing business. Then they call your name. Your stomach drops. You step into the open space before the dais. You feel the eyes of the village on your back. You rack your brain. What did you do? Did you steal a stick? Did you miss a Sunday Mass? Robert, son of Thomas, the pledge reads, failed to scour his ditch in the west field, causing water to back up onto the Lord's land. You remember the ditch. You meant to dig it out. But that was the week of the love boom, and you were too exhausted to lift a spade. You want to explain this. You want to say, I didn't dig the ditch because I was harvesting the Lord's wheat. But you saying nothing. There is no defense attorney here. There is no jury of your peers in the modern sense. There is only the steward, the ledger, and the fact. The ditch was dirty. The water backed up. You are guilty. Immersed 3 pence, the steward says. 3 pence. That is 3 days' wages for a skilled laborer. For you, it is a fortune. You nod, accepting the judgment. You cannot argue. To argue is to question the Lord's authority, which is a separate, much more expensive crime called contempt. But the list goes on. The court is a dragnet for every minor infraction of daily life. William struck Hugh in the face. Hugh raised the hue and cry. Both men are fined. William is fined for the assault. Hugh is fined for raising the hue and cry without just cause, because the steward decides the punch wasn't hard enough to warrant screaming. Or perhaps Hugh is fined simply for disturbing the king's peace by bleeding in public. The logic is impenetrable. The fight was a disruption of the manor's order, and order must be paid for. The widow Agnes has committed fornication. Lay white the fine for illicit sex. The Lord regulates the morality of the bedroom, because unapproved children complicate inheritance lines. Agnes pays for her loneliness. The tithing of Northgate failed to produce the poacher who ran away. The entire group is fined. 10 men groan inwardly. They will now hate the poacher not for the crime, but for the debt he left them. The community bonds are strained, tested, and monetized. As the hours drag on, you realize the true purpose of the hall moat. It is not a court of justice. It is a revenue stream. It is a business meeting where the Lord reviews the profitability of his human assets. Every rule, every regulation, every custom of the manor is designed with a trapdoor that leads to a fine. The bylaws are announced. No harvesting before dawn. No letting sheep onto the stubble before All Saints' Day. No leaving the village without permission. These are not just rules for order. They are tripwires. The more rules there are, the more likely you are to trip, and every trip puts a silver penny in the Lord's chest. You watch the pile of coins on the steward's table grow. It is a mountain of silver harvested from the mistakes, the laziness, and the misfortunes of the poor. It is wealth generated ex nihilo, created out of nothing but authority. Finally, the session ends. The steward rolls up the parchment. The clerk wipes his pen. The perquisites of court, the profits have been substantial today. The Lord will be pleased. You shuffle out of the hall. back into the cold air. You are 3 pence poorer. You feel a sense of relief that it wasn't worse, mixed with a simmering, impotent rage. You walked in hoping for fairness, and you walked out with a receipt. You look at your neighbor, the one who reported your ditch. He won't meet your eye. He had to do it. If he hadn't, he would have been fined. The system forces you to police each other. It turns the village into a panopticon where everyone is watching everyone else, not to keep them safe, but to keep them solvent. You walk home. You have to tell your wife about the 3 pence. You will have to sell the extra cheese. You might have to skip the new shoes for the winter. The sun is setting, casting long shadows over the village. The hall moat is over for now, but the laws remain. They are invisible nets draped over your life. You cannot dig, drink, fight, love, or even breathe without interacting with the Lord's jurisdiction. You realize, with a heavy heart, that you are not a citizen. You are not even a subject. You are a source of friction. And in the great machine of the manor, every time you rub against the gears, you are the one who gets worn down, and the heat you generate is converted into gold for the man who owns the machine. You step into your cottage and bar the door. You are safe from the steward for another 6 months. But as you lie in the dark, you wonder, if you dream of freedom tonight, is there a fine for that too? The fines of the hall moat have been paid, leaving your purse lighter and your pride bruised. But life in the village continues its relentless biological march. The seasons turn, the pigs die, the wheat grows, and children turn into adults. You look across the smoky room of your cottage at your daughter. She is 16 now. She is no longer the child who chased geese in the mud. She is strong. She can winnow grain for 12 hours without stopping. She can shear a sheep. She is a valuable economic unit, and she is in love. Or if not love, she has at least found a viable partner. A young man from the neighboring strip of land, or perhaps, God forbid, a man from a different manor entirely. They have exchanged glances at the well. They have walked together during the gleaning. He has spoken to you, awkwardly, twisting his cap in his hands, asking for her hand. In a free world, this would be a moment of joy, a union of families, a promise of grandchildren. You would calculate the dowry, the pots, the linen, maybe a cow that you would give to the new couple to help them start their life. It would be a transaction between you and the groom, a private treaty of the heart and the hearth. But you are not free, and your daughter does not belong to you. Technically, her body belongs to the Lord. Every muscle fiber she has developed carrying water buckets, every drop of blood in her veins is the property of the estate. She is chattel, livestock with a soul. If she marries, she will likely move to her husband's house. She will have children who will work his land. The Lord is about to lose a worker and all her future offspring. He is losing a breeding mare from his stable, and for that loss you must pay. This is the merchant, the flesh tax. It is the defining mark of serfdom. A free man can give his daughter in marriage to whomever he pleases. A serf must buy the right to do so. It is the ultimate humiliation, a legal reminder that your parental authority is secondary to the Lord's proprietary interest. You trudge back to the manor house. You are becoming a regular here. You stand before the steward again. You explain that your daughter wishes to marry. The steward does not offer congratulations. He opens the ledger. He looks at your daughter's name. He assesses her value. This is not a flat fee like the rent. Merchant is arbitrary. It is based on the quality of the woman and the wealth of the father. She is strong, the steward notes, as if he were discussing a plow horse. She has wide hips. She will bear many sons. You stand there, listening to this bureaucrat appraise your child's reproductive potential. It is degrading, but you cannot speak up. You cannot say, she has a beautiful singing voice, or she is kind to animals. Those things have no market value. The Lord cares about labor output. If the groom is from the same manor, The fee might be manageable, a shilling or two. The Lord is keeping the bloodline within his jurisdiction, so he is lenient. But if the groom is from abroad, meaning the village 3 miles away, owned by a different lord, the price skyrockets. This is for marriage. You are exporting capital. You are taking a womb that belongs to Lord A and giving it to Lord B. For this treason, you must pay a heavy ransom. You begin to haggle. It is a grotesque negotiation. You find yourself downplaying your own child's worth to save money. She is sickly. You lie. She has a bad cough in the winter. She is lazy. You insult the person you love most in the world, hoping the steward will lower the price of her freedom. He sees right through you. He knows you have been saving for this. He names a price. 3 shillings. 3 shillings. That is the price of a good pig. That is months of wages. It is a devastating sum. But if you don't pay, she cannot marry. If she runs away with him, she becomes a fugitive. If she stays and remains unmarried, she becomes a burden. You pay. You place the coins on the table. You are literally buying your daughter's body back from the Lord for one day, just so you can give it to someone else. There is a grim joke whispered in the village. Why does the Lord charge for the wedding? Because he hates to see anyone else getting screwed on his property. You don't laugh at it today. The transaction feels too close to slavery to be funny. But the horror of the flesh tax isn't just in the marriage. It is in the alternative. What if she doesn't marry? What if she simply finds comfort in the arms of a boy in the hayloft? What if nature takes its course without the church or the Lord's permission? Then you pay the lay-white. This is the fine for unchastity. If your daughter gets pregnant out of wedlock, or even if she is simply caught lying with a man, the Lord fines you. The logic is brutally economic. A pregnant unmarried woman is a damaged asset. She might not be able to work as hard in the fields. She has been devalued. The Lord claims he is the guardian of the manor's morality, which is rich coming from a man whose ancestors likely exercised the droit du seigneur, the right of the first night. Historians argue endlessly about whether lords actually raped peasant brides on their wedding nights as a matter of law. Most agree it was a myth, or at least extremely rare in the formal sense. But merchant is the economic echo of that myth. The Lord may not be physically claiming her body on the wedding night, but he is financially claiming his right to it before he hands it over. He is the third wheel in every marriage bed, demanding his cut of the intimacy. You walk home, the receipt for your daughter's happiness in your pocket. The wedding can go ahead. The ceremony takes place at the church door, not inside, but on the porch, as is the custom. The priest blesses the couple. The village cheers. There is a feast of sorts. You bring out the ale you brewed and paid the cunner for. You bring out the bread you baked and paid the baker for. You look at your daughter. She is wearing a crown of flowers. She is smiling. She is happy. She does not think about the silver coins you left on the steward's table. She thinks she is free. But you know better. You watch her new husband. He is a serf too. He has paid his own fees. He has paid the entry fine to take over his father's cottage. You realize that you haven't really freed her. You have simply transferred her lease. She will move to a new hut. She will work a new strip of land. She will pay her own tithes, her own rent, her own fines. And when she has daughters, she will stand in the manor court and listen to the steward haggle over their hips and their strength. The cycle of the flesh tax is unbroken. It turns human beings into inventory. It strips the romance out of life and replaces it with a bill of sale. As the sun sets and the dancing begins, you sit on a bench, feeling the weight of the empty purse against your thigh. You have done your duty. You have played by the rules. You have purchased the permit for love. But there is a lingering bitterness. You look at your hands rough, scarred, owned. You look at your daughter's hands young, strong, owned. You realize that in the eyes of the law, this wedding isn't a sacrament. It is a merger and acquisition. and you are just the broker who paid the closing costs. The fiddle plays a lively tune. The villagers stomp the earth, kicking up dust. You clap along because you must. But in your head, you can still hear the steward's voice, dry and indifferent, putting a price tag on the only thing you ever truly wanted to call your own. You are sitting in the dark of your cottage, listening to the wind rattle the shutters. The harvest is done. The tithe is paid. The rent is settled. The pigs are slaughtered, and the wood is stacked. For a brief, delusional moment, you allow yourself to believe that the year's accounts are closed. You have survived the gauntlet of the manor's bureaucracy. You have a little bit of food, a roof that mostly keeps out the rain, and most importantly, a secret. You look up at the blackened thatch of the roof, specifically at a spot near the chimney where the soot hangs thickest. Or perhaps you look down at the beaten earth floor near the leg of the bed. Buried there, wrapped in a scrap of oiled rag or stuffed inside a hollow cow bone, is your hoard. It is not a dragon's treasure. It is a pathetic collection of clipped silver pennies, maybe a cracked groat, and a few foreign coins that made their way to the village via a passing peddler. It amounts to perhaps 4 shillings. To a merchant in London, this is lunch money. To you, it is the difference between life and death. It is your hedge against the next famine, the next illness, or the next bad harvest. It is the only thing in the world that is truly yours, hidden from the priest, the miller, and the bailiff. But you have forgotten the most terrifying word in the feudal lexicon, tallage. The word comes from the French tailor, to cut. It means a slice, a piece taken off the whole. And unlike the rent, which is fixed by custom, or the fines, which are triggered by offenses, tallage is arbitrary. It is a tax levied at will. It happens simply because the Lord decides it needs to happen. The news ripples through the village, not with a bell, but with a rumor that turns into a panic. The Lord is in debt. Perhaps he gambled too much at court. Perhaps he needs to buy a new suit of armor for a tournament. Perhaps the king has demanded a scutage, shield money, to fight a war in France, and the Lord is passing the cost down the line. Or perhaps his daughter is getting married, and he needs a dowry. The reason doesn't matter. The physics of the manor are simple. When the pressure mounts at the top, it crushes the people at the bottom. The bailiff arrives in the village. He is not alone this time. He brings men with staves, maybe a few men-at-arms and leather jacks. This is not a collection of rent. It is a raid. They gather the tenants on the green. The bailiff reads the proclamation. The Lord exercises his right of tallage. He demands a sum. It might be a flat tax on every head, a poll tax. Or, more cruelly, it might be a percentage of your movable goods. 1/10 of your value, a 15th. You stand there, your heart hammering against your ribs. You do the mental math. 1/10? If they value your cow, your plow, your tools, and your grain, 1/10 is more than you have in the jar. It is ruin. The assessment begins. They move from house to house. This is the inquisition of the barn. They walk into your cottage. They look at your pot. They kick your sack of grain. They pinch the flank of your ox. They are appraising your life. 1 cow, value 6 shillings, the clerk mutters. 1 brass pot, value 2 shillings. Grain stock, value 4 shillings. They total it up. 12 shillings total wealth, the bailiff announces. Tallage is set at 1 shilling, 2 pence. You breathe a sigh of relief. You have that. You have the 4 shillings in the bone. You can pay. But then the bailiff looks at you. He knows you. He knows you worked hard this year. He suspects that a man who works hard saves money. And the hoard? He asks softly. You freeze. I have no money, sir. You lie. Only the grain. The bailiff sighs. He nods to the men with staves. Search. This is the nightmare. The sanctity of your home is violated. They tear the thatch from the roof. They overturn the mattress. They poke the earth floor with iron rods, listening for the clink of metal or the hollow sound of a buried pot. They are efficient. They have done this 100 times. They know all the hiding spots: the loose brick in the hearth, the hollow leg of the stool, the space behind the crucifix. One of them finds the bone. He shakes it. Rattle, rattle. He hands it to the bailiff. The bailiff pours the contents into his palm. 4 shillings. Perjury, the bailiff says, shaking his head. You lied to the Lord's officer. He takes the 1 shilling and 2 pence for the tallage. But he doesn't give the rest back. He confiscates the whole hoard. Immersed for concealment, he declares. You watch your life savings disappear into his pouch. You don't scream. You don't fight. To fight is treason. To strike a bailiff is a hanging offense. You just stand there, your hands shaking, watching the fruits of 3 years of starvation vanish in 3 seconds. The horror of tallage is legal, not just financial. It is based on the concept of villanage. In the eyes of the law, a serf is unfree. This means you do not own property. You are property. Anything you possess, your cow, your tools, your silver technically, belongs to the Lord already. He allows you to use it, to keep it, to trade with it. But at any moment, he can recall his capital. When he takes your money, he isn't stealing. He is simply moving coins from his left pocket, you to his right pocket, the chest. This is the ransom of existence. You are paying for the privilege of continuing to exist on his land. The bailiff moves on to the next house. You hear the screams of a widow who has nothing to give. You hear the sound of a cow being dragged away because the family couldn't produce the silver. The tallage is a vacuum cleaner sucking the liquidity out of the village. You sit down on your overturned stool. The thatch is ruined where they tore it. The floor is dug up. The house looks like a battlefield. The irony is bitter. The Lord needs this money for something abstract. Maybe a tapestry depicting a hunt. Maybe a new saddle. Maybe to pay interest to a Jewish moneylender in the city. Your survival, your hedge against death, has been liquidated to pay for a luxury you will never see. Historians still argue whether tallage was a regular, yearly occurrence or a rare catastrophe. Some manors tallaged their serfs every Michaelmas like clockwork. Others only did it once in a generation. But the threat was always there. It hung over you like a sword suspended by a thread. It disincentivized saving. Why work harder? Why scrimp and save? If you accumulate wealth, you just become a juicier target. You are a sponge, and the Lord is the hand that squeezes. You look at the empty hole in the floor. You feel a strange, perverse freedom. You have nothing left to lose. You are back to zero. You are bare, but the anger burns. You realize that the tallage is the ultimate proof that the feudal contract is a lie. They say the Lord protects you. He provides the land. You provide the labor. But when the enemy is dead, he does not protect you. He sacrifices you. He uses you as a human shield against his own financial incompetence. You pick up the cow bone. It is light now, empty. You throw it into the corner. Tonight, there will be no comfort in the knowledge of the hoard. There will be no secret smile when you walk past the manor house. You are naked before the power of the state. You are a tenant at will, subject to the whims of a man who views your poverty as a resource to be mined. You go to the door and look out at the village. The bailiff's cart is full. He is leaving. He has tallaged the village. He has cut the pie. You wonder if the Lord will enjoy his new armor. You hope it fits him well. You hope it is shiny and strong, because you paid for the rivets with your hunger. You paid for the polish with your fear. And as the winter wind howls through the hole in your roof, you realize that the only thing the Lord truly owns is the silence of men who are too tired to revolt. The Lord's tallage was a localized disaster, a storm that rained only on your specific village. But the world outside the manor is vast, and it is violent. Somewhere, far beyond the horizon, The king is at war. Perhaps he is fighting the French for a province you couldn't find on a map. Perhaps he is fighting the Scots for a border you will never see. To you, the war is a distant rumor, a story told by traveling beggars. It has no shape, no sound, no smell. Until today. Today, you hear the rumble of wheels and the clatter of hooves on the road. It is not the bailiff's pony. It is the heavy, rhythmic tread of destrier's war horses. You look up from your work. A column of men is moving through the village. They wear livery, coats of matching colors with a badge sewn on the chest. They carry pikes and swords. They are the king's men. Your first instinct might be relief. These are the defenders of the realm. These are the men who stopped the Vikings, the French raiders, the bandits. They are the steel wall between civilization and chaos. But then you see the wagons. They are empty. And you see the man leading them. He is not a knight in shining armor. He is a bureaucrat in a dusty cloak. He is a purveyor. He stops his horse in the village square. He does not ask for volunteers. He does not ask for donations. He unfolds a piece of parchment sealed with the Great Seal of England. He declares the right of prize, seizure, and purveyance. This is the royal right to buy goods for the king's household and his army at a price set by the king, not the market. In theory, it is a forced sale. In practice, it is legalized looting. The soldiers fan out. They are not looting like Vikings, smashing doors and burning roofs. They are looting like accountants. They are looking for specific logistical assets. They come to your barn. You stand in the doorway, blocking them. The purveyor rides up. The king requires transport, he says. He points to your cart. Your cart is not a luxury. It is the only way you can move your manure to the field, your wood from the forest, and your grain to the mill. Without the cart, you are a beast of burden. You are the cart. And the ox, he adds. He points to your ox, the animal you named, the animal that pulls your plow, the animal that represents half your capital wealth. You try to protest. You say you need them for the harvest. You say the ox is old. The purveyor nods sympathetically. The king's need is greater, he recites. It is the mantra of the state. The macro always consumes the micro. The soldiers hitch the ox to the cart. They begin to load it, but they don't load it with weapons. They load it with your grain. They take the sacks of oats you are saving for the winter. They take the cheese. They take the salted pork. They are stripping the village of its calories to fuel the engine of war. This is the reality of medieval logistics. An army marches on its stomach, and that stomach is filled by emptying yours. The soldiers are not protecting your food. They are eating it. There is a dark joke among the peasantry. God save us from the enemy, but God save us twice from our own king. The cart is full. Your ox is yoked. The purveyor turns to you. He does not offer you gold. He does not offer you silver. He reaches into his saddlebag and pulls out a piece of wood. It is a stick of hazel or willow, about 8 inches long. It has been smoothed and shaped. He takes a knife and cuts notches into it. Cut, cut. 3 notches for the cart, he says. 2 for the ox. 5 for the grain. The notches represent the value of the goods seized. A wide notch for £1. A smaller notch for $1. A scratch for $0.01. Then he does something crucial. He splits the stick down the middle, lengthwise. The grain of the wood ensures that the 2 halves match perfectly. No one can forge a tally stick because no other piece of wood has the same internal structure. He gives you 1/2. It is called the stock. He keeps the other half. It is called the foil or the counterstock. Present this at the exchequer in Westminster, he tells you, and you shall be paid. You hold the stick. It is light. It is just a piece of wood. But legally, it is a government bond. It is a promise from the crown that you will be reimbursed for the theft of your livelihood. The column moves on. taken your cart, your ox, and your food. You are left standing in the dust with a stick in your hand. The irony is suffocating. To cash this stick, you would have to walk to London. That is a journey of weeks. You would have to leave your farm. You would have to find the exchequer. You would have to wait in line behind thousands of other creditors, knights, merchants, bishops. You would likely have to bribe a clerk to even get your stick looked at. And even then, the king's treasury is often empty. You might be told to come back next year, or the year after. The cost of redeeming the tally stick is higher than the value of the stick itself. It is bad debt. It is a worthless IOU written by a man with a sword to a man with a shovel. You look at the stick. You could burn it. It would provide about 30 seconds of heat. That is its only tangible value to you right now. But you keep it. You put it in the jar where the silver used to be. You keep it because it is the only proof that you once owned an ox. It is a souvenir of your contribution to history. The purveyance system is so hated that the Magna Carta specifically tried to limit it. No constable or other bailiff of ours shall take corn or other provisions from anyone without immediately tendering money therefor, the barons wrote. But the king ignored it. His son ignored it. War is expensive, and paper promises are cheap. You walk back into your barn. It feels huge and empty without the ox. The silence is different here. It is the silence of a factory that has been stripped of its machinery. How will you plow next spring? You will have to pull the plow yourself. You and your wife will harness yourselves to the wood and drag it through the mud, stepping into the footprints where the ox used to walk. You have been demoted. You are no longer a farmer. You are a draft animal. You hear the soldiers singing as they march away. They are happy. They are well fed. They are riding on carts full of purveyed supplies. They are going to fight for the glory of England. You wonder what that glory looks like. Does it look like a new tapestry in the palace? Does it look like a statue in a square? To you, the glory of England looks like an empty barn and a piece of hazel wood with 3 notches in it. The villagers gather on the green, comparing their sticks. It is a grim show and tell. I got a stick for my cow, one man says. I got a stick for my ale, says the brewer. I got a stick for my son, a woman whispers. She isn't speaking metaphorically. Sometimes the commission of array takes men too. They are conscripted to drive the carts, to dig the trenches, to carry the baggage. They are paid in food, if they are lucky. If they die of dysentery in a camp in France, there is no tally stick for that. There is just a hole in the ground. You realize that the king's war is a parasite. It feeds on the surplus of the land. It sucks the blood out of the countryside to pump it into the veins of the army. And when the war is over, and the history books are written, they will talk about the heroic archers and the brave knights. They will not mention the peasant who starved to death because his cart was stolen to carry the arrows. You go back to your cottage. You sit by the fire. You hold the tally stick in your hand, running your thumb over the notches. Click, click, click. It is the sound of your poverty. It is the sound of your patriotism, extracted by force. You throw the stick into the corner. It lands next to the empty cow bone. You have a collection of emptiness now. An empty barn, an empty jar, an empty future. But you are safe. The soldiers have gone. The enemy, the French, the Scots, will not come here. The king has protected you. He has protected you so well that you have nothing left for anyone else to steal. The war is distant, but death is local. It has finally come to your cottage, not with the fanfare of trumpets or the clash of steel, but with the quiet, rattling sigh of a pair of lungs that have simply worn out. Your father is dead. He lies on the straw mattress in the corner, his face gray and waxy in the firelight. He looks small. A lifetime of plowing the Lord's fields, of threshing the Lord's grain, and of worrying about the Lord's rent has ground him down to a husk. He was 45, perhaps 50. He was an old man by the standards of the village, a survivor of the flux, the famine, and the back-breaking labor of the boom work. Now he is at rest. The cottage is silent. Your mother is weeping softly, a sound that seems to merge with the wind outside. Your wife is covering the mirrors, or perhaps turning the pails upside-down superstitions to stop the soul from getting trapped. You are standing at the foot of the bed, staring at his calloused hands. You should be grieving. You should be remembering the time he taught you to hold the plow handles, or the time he shared his portion of cheese with you during the hungry months. And you are grieving. There is a stone in your chest that makes it hard to breathe. But beneath the grief, there is a cold, sharp spike of panic. You are not just a son mourning a father. You are a tenant facing a transfer of lease. And in the feudal world, death is not a release from debt. It is a trigger for the heaviest tax of all. You look toward the door. You are listening. You are not listening for the priest to come and save his soul. You are listening for the bailiff to come and take his assets. It happens fast. The news of a death travels through the village faster than the plague. The Lord has spies everywhere, neighbors who want to curry favor, or perhaps the sexton who rings the bell. The manor knows a tenant has died before the body is cold. There is a knock. It is heavy, authoritative. It is the sound of the law arriving to claim its share of the corpse. You open the door. The bailiff stands there. He takes off his hat, a gesture of respect that feels entirely performative. He mutters a few words about your loss. He was a good worker, he says. It is the highest praise a serf can receive. He was a functional machine until the end. Then the bailiff steps past you. He does not go to the bed. He does not go to the body. He walks straight through the cottage and out the back door into the small yard where the animals are kept. He is looking for the Harriet. This is the death tax. The word comes from the Old English here gear, meaning war gear. In the ancient days, when a warrior died, his lord would take back the horse and armor he had lent him. It was a return of military capital. But you are not a warrior. You have no armor. You have no sword. You have a cow. You follow the bailiff into the mud. He stands before your livestock. You have 2 cows. One is old, her udder dry, her hip bones jutting out like coat hangers. The other is Bessie. She is the pride of the family. She is strong. She gives a gallon of milk a day in the summer. She pulls the cart when the ox is tired. She is the biological engine that keeps your children from rickets. She is the best beast. The law of Harriet is simple and brutal. The Lord claims the best beast. The bailiff walks past the old cow without glancing at her. He walks up to Bessie. He slaps her flank. She moves, a low, confused sound. He nods. This one, he says. You feel a surge of desperation. Sir, you stammer. Please. She is the milk. She is the plow. Take the other one. Take the pig. Take the tools. The bailiff shakes his head. He is not being cruel. He is being bureaucratic. The custom of the manor is written in stone. The Lord gets the best. If he took the second best, he would be setting a precedent, and precedents are dangerous things. The best beast, he repeats. He unties the rope. Your mother has come out of the cottage. She sees what is happening. She starts to wail, a high, thin sound of absolute despair. Not the cow, not the cow. It is a scene that has played out in 10,000 muddy yards across Europe for 5 centuries. The widow begging for the livelihood of her family, while the representative of the wealthy leads it away. To the Lord, the cow is just another asset. He has herds of them. He will likely sell this one at the next market, or slaughter it for a feast. He doesn't need the milk. He doesn't need the plow. But to you, the loss of the cow is an economic catastrophe. It means less manure for the field, which means a smaller harvest next year. It means no milk to sell for salt. It means no cheese. It means that just as you lose the labor of your father, two strong hands, you also lose the capital of the farm. You are being stripped of your ability to recover. This is the poverty trap of serfdom. Every time a generation passes, the accumulated wealth of the family is shaved off at the top. You cannot inherit your father's success. You can only inherit his lease minus his best asset. You are constantly being reset to zero. The bailiff leads the cow through the gate. She resists slightly, pulling against the rope, looking back at you. She knows you. She doesn't know him, but she goes. She is property, and property always flows uphill. You stand in the yard, watching them disappear down the lane. The mud is churned up where she stood. The empty stall seems to echo. You realize the profound irony of the protection the Lord offers. He protects you from bandits so that he can be the one to rob you. He protects you from wolves so that he can be the one to eat the sheep. But the indignity isn't over. The bailiff pauses at the gate. He turns back. The gursum will be due at the next court, he reminds you. The gursum is the entry fine. It is the fee you must pay to legally take over your father's holding. You have lived in that house your whole life. You were born there. You worked the land alongside him every day. But in the eyes of the law, you have no right to be there. The tenancy ended with his last breath. To stay in your own home, you must pay a massive fine often equivalent to a year's rent. So, you have lost the father. You have lost the cow. And now you must find a year's rent in silver just to keep the roof over your head. You walk back into the cottage. The fire is burned down. The body is still there. Your father looks peaceful, unaware that his death has just cost his family its future. You sit beside him. You are now the tenant. You are the head of the household. You have inherited the debt. You have inherited the fear. You look at your hands. They are shaking, not from grief, but from rage. A cold, silent rage that you can never express, because to express it is to lose the lease. There is a knock at the door again. You freeze. The bailiff is gone. Who could it be? It is not the Lord's man this time. It is the church. The priest stands in the doorway. He is wearing his vestments. He looks solemn. He holds a Bible in one hand and a sack in the other. He has come to administer the last rites, to bless the body, and to ensure your father's soul finds its way to heaven. But you know, with a sinking dread that hits you like a physical blow, that the priest does not work for free either. The Lord took the body's wealth. Now the church has come for the soul's price. The Harriet was the first cut, but the carcass of your family's fortune is still on the table, and there are other knives sharpening in the dark. The priest steps across the threshold, bringing with him the smell of beeswax and stale incense, a sharp contrast to the earthen, metallic scent of death that hangs in your cottage. He is not a stranger. He is the man who baptized you. He is the man who married you. He is the man who listens to your sins in the dark of the confessional. But today, he is not a shepherd of souls. He is a collector of debts. He approaches the bed where your father lies. He makes the sign of the cross. He mutters the In Nomen Patris. It is a comforting ritual, a familiar rhythm in a moment of chaos. For a second, you feel a flicker of gratitude. The church is here to guide the old man through the terrifying dark of purgatory. But the prayer ends quickly. The priest turns to you. His face is solemn, practiced. He has done this 100 times. The soul must be unburdened, he says softly. You nod. You assume he means unburdened of sin. You are wrong. He means unburdened of assets. This is the mortuary. In the tangled legal web of the village, if the Harriet is the Lord's bite, the mortuary is the church's swallow. The custom is ancient and rigid. Just as the Lord claims the best beast as a return of his capital, the church claims the second best beast or the second best chattel as a recompense for forgotten tithes. The logic is a masterpiece of guilt. The church assumes that at some point in his life, your father must have cheated God, Perhaps he harvested a row of onions and didn't give the 10th one to the rector. Perhaps he sold a lamb and kept the extra penny. These forgotten tithes are stains on his soul. To ensure he doesn't burn in the fires of purgatory for tax evasion, the church settles the account now, at the very end, by seizing a final asset. The priest looks around the room. The best beast, Bessie the cow, is already gone, led away by the bailiff. The stable is empty. The pig is eaten. There is no beast, the priest observes. No, Father, you whisper. The Lord took the cow. We have nothing. The priest's eyes drift to the bed. They land on the woolen coverlet that is draped over your father's legs. It is a good blanket. Your wife spun the wool. It is thick, dyed a dark, rusty red. It is the only thing keeping the body decent. The coverlet, the priest says. You stare at him. A blanket? It is the second best chattel, he explains, his voice level. It will serve. He is claiming the bedclothes. There is a specific, intimate horror to this. The Harriet took the cow, which was an economic tool. The mortuary takes the domestic comfort. It strips the bed. It means that your father, who worked for 50 years to clothe and feed the parish, will leave his house not just poor, but naked. You want to argue. You want to scream that the blanket is needed for the living, that the winter is coming, that your children are cold. But you cannot argue with the vicar of Christ. To deny the mortuary is to endanger the soul. Do you want your father to linger in the flames because you are stingy with a blanket? You step forward. You gently pull the heavy wool from the bed. Your father's body looks smaller without it, a frail shape in a rough linen tunic. You fold the blanket. You hand it to the priest. He takes it. He tucks it under his arm. He does not say thank you. One does not thank a debtor for paying what is owed, but the transaction is not over. The mortuary is just the entrance fee to death. Now come the burial costs. The grave must be dug, the priest reminds you. You pay the sexton a penny for the labor of breaking the frozen ground. The bells must be rung. You pay for the sole peal. The ringing of the church bells is not just a notification. It is a spiritual service. The sound drives away the demons that wait in the air to snatch the departing spirit. If you want the bells to ring long and loud, you pay more. If you are poor, your father gets a short, pathetic ding-dong that barely clears the tree line. The lights must be lit. You pay for the wax. The wax-scot. You need candles around the bier to light the way. Beeswax is expensive. Tallow smokes and smells of beef fat, which is considered an insult to God. So you dip into the jar again. You hand over the pennies that were meant for seed grain. You are literally burning your future to honor the past. Finally, the body is prepared. You wrap him in a shroud, a simple sheet of linen, sewn up the middle. He is lifted onto the bier. You and your neighbors carry him to the churchyard. The service is brief. The Latin words wash over you, incomprehensible but heavy with authority. Requiem aeternam dona eis, Domini. You watch the body lowered into the hole. The earth, the same heavy clay earth he plowed every day of his life, begins to cover him. Dust to dust. As the grave is filled, you realize the totality of the extraction. Your father was born a serf. He paid the Lord for the land. He paid the priest for the harvest. He paid the miller for the flour. He paid the baker for the fire. He paid the king for the war. And now, in his final moment, he has paid his last blanket to the church and his best cow to the manor. He has been consumed. He has been eaten by the system, bone by bone, until there is nothing left but a name in a parish register and a patch of disturbed dirt. You walk back to the cottage. The door stands open. The fire has gone out. The room feels vast and empty. The bed in the corner is bare, the mattress straw exposed without the red blanket. You sit down on the stool. You are the patriarch now. You are the man of the house. You look at the empty jar. You look at the empty barn. You look at the tally stick in the corner. You have survived. That is the only victory you can claim. You are still breathing. You still have your hands. You still have the lease, assuming you can scrape together the entry fine by Easter. The sun begins to set, casting long blue shadows across the floor. The silence of the house is absolute. There is no moaning from the bed. There is no lowing from the cowshed. There is only the wind and the beat of your own heart. You realize that the medieval tax wasn't just about money. It was about energy. It was a system designed to siphon the kinetic energy of your muscles and convert it into castles, cathedrals, and wars. You were the battery, and you have been drained. But as you sit there, a strange, grim resolve settles over you. You will plow tomorrow. You will plant the rye. You will fix the fence. You will breed the pig. You will start the cycle again. Not because you have hope, but because you have no choice. You are the endurance of the earth itself. The Lord will die. The priest will die. The king will die. But you? You and your kind will remain, standing in the mud, holding the plow, paying the price of existence 1 silver penny at a time. You stand up. You close the door against the cold. You rake the ashes of the fire, finding a single glowing coal. You feed it a piece of straw. You blow on it. The flame catches. It is small, weak, and flickering. But it is hot. It is light. And for tonight, at least, it is yours.